All right, so we're going to be working on section 9.1. It's areas of basic figures. The figures that we're going to be looking at, like I said, are squares, parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and give you all of those formulas. Okay, so let's go ahead and write down all the formulas that I just mentioned. Okay, so these are areas. Okay, so a square normally they use base times height, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, base, and a square has the same base as it does its height, right? All the sides are exactly the same measure, so that would be b as well. If that's my base, then the other side is my base too. So the area of a square is just b squared. In a lot of books, they put s squared, side squared, okay? I'm just going to stick with b and h, just to keep everything consistent, okay? So the area of a square, if you have a square, just figure out the side of it. Whatever the side is, you square it, and that's your area, okay? Now, rectangle, actually, let me not do rectangle. Let me do parallelogram. Parallel. Is it two L's or one? There's two. Parallelogram. So this would look like this. Now, it doesn't have to look like this angle all the time, but it's going to be something like this. It's kind of like a rectangle that's slanted, okay? Now, for this, your b value is going to be that little piece right there, okay? Your height, you actually have to drop it. That's your height. Now, the good news is, in this homework, you don't have to worry about finding it. If I'm correct, everything's already given to you. You just got to identify it and use it. Okay? So for the parallelogram, you have to kind of imagine that dropped h. Okay, and it goes over. So the area is just base times height. Okay, so that's for the parallelogram. Triangle. So make sure you have these next to you, because I'm not going to list them all again. I'll maybe write some down here and there. But now the triangle can look many different ways, but the most common one that you're going to see is one that looks like this. Okay, but they can rotate it. They can do whatever they want. Okay, this would be our base. This would be our height. Okay, the area is 1/2 base times height. Some people like to write base times height over 2. That's okay as well. Base times height over 2. That works. But I always learned it as half the base and the height. The reason why I like writing half the base and the height, because I don't know if you knew this, but the triangle got its area by getting a square, or say a rectangle, and cutting it diagonally. So in other words, if you have the area of a rectangle and cut it in half, you get a triangle. That's why it's half of a rectangle, half BH. Okay? So there's your area for your triangle. And then the tough one is your trapezoid. Not that it's like really difficult, but it has a weird equation compared to these other ones. Now, trapezoid can look many different ways. I'll try to show you two different pictures. Sometimes the most common one is given to you, which is one that looks like this. Okay. Other times it might look like this. Now, the reason why I'm giving you both is just so you can see how the formulas are going to be attached to these shapes. So this would be your height. This would be base 1, base 2. Okay. If it's the other picture, base 1, base 2, and your height is this distance right there. And again, they should give you that value, okay? They should give that to you. And the formula is area equal to, it's 1/2 the height times the sum of the bases. Oops, I'm sorry, not b sub 1, b sub 1. b sub 1 plus b sub 2. And like I said, the great thing about these lessons that we're going to give you guys, these next 3 lessons, is that we're not trying to make it difficult for you guys and say like, oh, use the Pythagorean Theorem to figure this out or something like that. We're going to give everything to you. You just got to know the formulas, plug in the numbers, and you should be solid, okay? You might need a calculator depending on the values. That's why I have my calculator out on the screen so that you guys can see me calculating it. But you're going to probably want to use a calculator for this, okay? Do you need me to go back to any picture? Does anybody need me to go back to any picture? By the way, just a real quick FYI, for a triangle, sometimes they'll give you an obtuse triangle, one that looks like this. Okay? If you see one that looks like that, this is still your base. Your height will be given to you out here. Okay? So they'll give you the height still, just so you know. So it just depends on how the triangle looks. Because we have right triangles, acute triangles, obtuse triangles. This is something you guys are supposed to already know, right? This is from Math 2. But we have different types, so the height might be in different places. So they'll draw it for you, just so you know. So let's go ahead and start working on some of these. So I'm just going to write down the formula. Area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Okay? Now, notice how this is rotated. Okay? This is kind of like slanted. So, if you had to choose, granted there's no real wrong choice, what would you call the base? What do you think the base is? 4.6. All right, let's label this as B. What would be my height then? The 7. So all I have to do is put H and B into my formula, and I'm done. So area is equal to 1/2 of 4.6 times 7. So I'm just going to use my calculator really quick, right? So 1/2, I'm just going to put 0.5, that's the same as 1/2, times 4.6 times 7, that's 16.1. By the way, I know we didn't talk about units, but area is always units squared, inches squared, or feet squared, meters squared, okay? So area is always square units. When we get to volume, those are called cubic. So inches cubed, feet cubed, meters cubed, okay? So just so you know, area is always in square units. All right? So that would be 16.1, like we said, 16.1 inches squared. So notice that's pretty much as tough as these things get. You just got to identify stuff. So let's move on. Let's check out this next one. Remember, area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Now this one might try to get you guys to mess up. I don't know. Can anybody tell me what is my base for this one? Now be very careful. But what would be my base? What do you guys think? Let me rotate this. Let me draw it again, okay? So you were saying, I think I heard someone say 9. Yeah? So if we use 1/2, and if I use base equal to 9, so that means my height is what? 3.6. Right? Remember, sometimes they draw it for you. So that would be 9 times 3.6. So half times 9 times 3.6, 16.2. Now I'm going to show you something that I always get students tell me like, well, wait a minute. What about if 4 is my base? So I'm going to show that to you right now, okay? What would happen if you said 4 is your base? So that would be 16.2 square feet, okay? Let me redraw it. I'm going to rotate this triangle and put 4 on the bottom. It's going to look like this. All right, now let me just write the following. Which one is considered my height, A or B? B. Do I know the length of B according to this triangle right there? No, I don't know it. I don't know it. So that's why I can't use 4 as the base, because if I use 4 as the base, I got to figure this out. Now, I do know the slant, right? This is 9. Okay? So how would you figure this out? You would have to use the Pythagorean Theorem. Remember how I told you we're not going to make you do that? But if you wanted to, you would do 4 squared plus, we'll call it x squared equals to 9 squared. So let me just show you what this would look like. Right? X squared, what is this? 75? No. 65. So x would be the square root of 65. That's what this would be. That's too much work. We're not trying to make you guys do this much work. We want you guys to just kind of have an easy time. So if you try to pick a number and it just doesn't make sense, try picking something else, because we're trying to make it easy for you guys, okay? So this stuff right here, we don't want that. Okay, we'll make it disappear. All right? Everything that you need is given. Nothing has to be found out by using a formula, okay? So, all right. We'll move on. Now, this is not a square. This is a rectangle or a parallelogram. Okay, rectangles are parallelograms. So, areas for rectangles or even squares and parallelograms could be base times height. Okay? What's my base? What should I call my B value? 8, all right. And my H would be 7.4. Okay, so A is just 8 times 7.4. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. And I get 59.2. Remember, my units are inches, so this would be inches squared. So A is equal to 59.2 inches squared. Again, not a difficult thing, right? This is not supposed to be hard. So if you're having an easy time, you know, that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a hard thing to do. So let's do one more of these, and I think we're going to move over to trapezoids, I think. So again, this kind of looks like a square, but it's not, right? It's a rectangle, 6.6 by 7.8. What's my base for this? 7.8. That means that my height has to be 6.6. So area is 7.8 times 6.6. Plug that into your calculator. 7.8 times 6.6. 51.48. So you can see right here. So 51.48 square inches, or inches squared. Are we okay so far? Any questions? And hopefully this seems like really easy and you're like, all right, I got this, no problem. All right, parallelograms. Parallelograms are basically, I think I told you guys, squares or rectangles that got pushed over. Okay? Kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? Which, by the way, I just learned this. What do you guys say? I was this years old when I found out that, or whatever, yeah, this many years old, when I found out that the Leaning Tower of Pisa is actually empty on the inside. I had no idea. I thought there were stairs for you to climb up. Guess not. So one day I'll go there. Who knows? Maybe. I got to save up a little bit. But okay, anyway, so remember, formula for this is still base times height. It's just crooked, right? So my base is what? All right, and my height is 2. Notice they gave it to you, right? You didn't have to figure it out or anything. So area is equal to 2.3 times 2. So the area should be 4.6. These are centimeters, so centimeters squared. So here you go. I didn't do a calculator on that one because multiplying by 2 is not terrible, so that's okay. So just as easy as squares and rectangles, right? Just multiply the base times the height. That's all you got to do. All right, getting close to the end here. This is another parallelogram, and I'm just checking really quick. I think after that it's a trapezoid and another trapezoid, and then that'll be it. Okay, so 2 trapezoids. So one more parallelogram. Notice we've done 2 of each, right? 2 triangles, 2 rectangles. We're going to do 2 parallelograms, and then we're going to do 2 trapezoids. So that way we've done 2 of each, so you have enough to kind of do the work on your own from here. Notice this thing's kind of rotated a little weird, but what can we call our base? The 7? Here, let me, remember, if I tell you that they drew something for you, look at my definition. Where's my definition over here? What do they always draw for us? The H, right? Look. H, 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 right? So what is this? What is the 7? That's my height, right? This is my height. Which one is my base then? 11. So you kind of have to mentally rotate it, right? So this would be your base. Okay? So remember, the heights, they tend to draw them, and they actually tend to draw them in red all the time, which is kind of nice. So area is equal to base times height. Area is 11 times 7. I don't need a calculator for that. That's 77 square inches. So there you go. So yeah, maybe the only tricky thing here is, you know, I would agree with you. 11 looks like it's the height because it's going up and down, right? But since they tend to draw it for us and they actually use a different color, it makes it a little more obvious that your H is 7. Okay? All right, last 2. So again, we're doing half the homework here. So this is a trapezoid. This formula is a little different. Area is 1/2 the height times the sum of the bases. Okay? So you got to add up the bases first and then multiply them times the height and then divide by 2. Okay? Or multiply times half. It's up to you. Same thing. So, what is my height? 6.2. What is base 1? It really doesn't matter, but which one would you call base 1? All right, so we'll go up here. So that means that the other one should be base sub 2. Okay? It doesn't matter which one you call base 1 and base 2. They're both going to be put together and added together. So it doesn't matter if you use the top one or the bottom one. Who cares? Just make sure you use both. Okay? So area is equal to 1/2. The height is 6.2. And the sum of the bases would be 7.3 plus 3.7. So area is equal to 1/2, 6.2. 7.3 plus 3.7 is 11. Okay? And now let's just kind of put this into a calculator. 0.5, that's half, times 6.2. Oh wait, I put 6.5, sorry. 6.2 times 11. 34.1. Now my units were miles, so it's going to be miles squared. So area is equal to 34.1 square miles. So right here. Like, is this that much more difficult than the other ones? Just a little bit more work, but it wasn't really like, oh man, this is going to be tough, right? Like, just add some stuff, multiply, and you're good. Your calculator is going to do all the hard part for you, so you should be okay. So here's the last one, okay? So I'm going to write down the formula again. Area is equal to 1/2 the height times the sum of the bases. What's my height? 5, right? It's the one that they give us in red in this worksheet. And then my bases, which one would we call base 1? Remember, it doesn't matter. All right. Well, I guess it does matter. You don't want to say 7.5. 7.5 is what we call a slant height, but we don't need that one. And b sub 2 would be 8.9. Okay? So let's go ahead and plug that in. That's 5 times 2.3 plus 8.9. So that's 1/2. 5 times 2.3 plus 8.9, that's 11.2. So let's go ahead and multiply. 0.5 times 5 times 11.2. And we get 28. Okay, so area is equal to 28 square miles, or miles squared, however you want to say it. So that's what your homework's going to be like. It's just using the area formulas to figure out the areas of these shapes. Okay.